feels and looks like Maximilian Verstappen is over the next couple of weeks going to announce that he will shun the attention of Lawrence Stroller over at Aston Martin. So to Toto Wolff, no chance, not at least for 2026, that his destination will be where he is now and he will stay at Red Bull. Do you think that's the right decision, Peter?
Well, that's what I've said he should do for the last 6 months, is it not? I've said, it would be crazy for Max to leave at the end of 2025 before he knows who's got the quick car in 26. Might be Red Bull, might be Mercedes, might be Ferrari, might be McLaren, could be anybody. Completely new regulations, power units are different, everything's different. So it behoves him logically to stay at Red Bull in 26, see who's got the quick car, make sure he's free and able to talk to anybody he wants to talk to from, say, August onwards, and do a Fangio and just go to whatever the best team is for 2027. That's completely logical, and I'm glad to see that that's what he's doing, because he's a logical guy. Why wouldn't he do that? I think possibly part of that is that, and I find this hard to understand in a way, but apparently Adrian is very into Fernando. Having started to work with him, he really likes the way Fernando works, and I think Adrian's pushing quite hard to keep Fernando in the Aston Martin. I say hard to understand. It's not hard to understand that, because Fernando's super quick and he's a good guy. What I find odd is that Adrian would be thinking in his brain, yeah, if it's Max or Fernando, I think I'll go with Fernando. I mean, good on him. He's got his own opinion and his own feeling, and that's what he's doing. Because obviously there's not room for Fernando and Max at Aston Martin, because they've got to get, the kid in there. So that's Aston Martin's door closed, it would seem. And then from Max's point of view, it then came down to Mercedes, I guess. And, as I said before, 6 of one, half a dozen the other.
Yeah.
Are Red Bull going to be good next year? Maybe not. Are Mercedes going to be good next year? Maybe not. So you stay where you are. The people. It's a bit of a fresh team with Laurent there, and let's go for it. Makes sense to me. But what they've got to do is, of course, get the other car sorted. They don't need someone that's going to be annoying for Max, but they certainly need somebody who's quick and who can be up there. When you look at that, say that sprint race, and you've got the 2 McLarens there putting pressure on Max, and there's Max on his own. Where's the other Red Bull? Why isn't the other Red Bull in P4 or P3 annoying Lando or doing something like that? What's Yuki doing? He's down in the midfield doing nothing as ever. And it's, they need to get somebody quick in that other car. And that needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be Carlos Sainz. But, I doubt that'll happen.
No.
Because I don't think Max wants Carlos in the team. I think it's a Max thing. And I think it goes back to when they were together at Toro Rosso for some reason. Probably because Carlos was quite quick relative to, he had a few moments, didn't he, when he was quicker than Max in that Toro Rosso. So it's probably that. Failing that, they need to put Hadjar in the car and just let him be the number 2.
That I think now is the most likely eventuality, Peter.
Yeah.
That Hadjar's making his case in real time. I'll just say this very quickly. I read somewhere the other day that Adrian Newey had a fantastic working relationship with Max, but they weren't necessarily best mates. They weren't going to the local watering hole to discuss football or tennis or any other sport, apparently. And that Adrian Newey somehow, or at least Alonso, has endeared himself a lot to Adrian Newey more than maybe Max has. Interest in that. I thought that they were I presumed that Adrian and Max Verstappen, because they'd had so much success together, were best friends almost. Apparently not.
Yeah. I'm not that surprised if I think about it. Fernando's more refined than Max Verstappen, isn't he? As a guy that you go to dinner with or hang out with or chat to. Max is fairly blunt, obvious, in your face racing driver, and just gets on with it. And Adrian's got some soft edges to him. Max is pretty blunt as a person. I'm only guessing here. I don't know that much. Whereas Fernando, I think, can sort of shape and mold his demeanor to whatever he wants to do. That's one of his great qualities. A very intelligent guy like that, and he's able to mix and match and be somebody that people love and really enjoy spending time with. And I think he's obviously, to say he's done a very good job on that with Adrian is to demean human relationships. He's obviously warmed to Adrian, and Adrian has warmed to Fernando, and that's no real surprise because there is a lot more than just Formula One in life, isn't there? There's a lot more than motor racing to life, and I think Adrian probably quite likes that about Fernando. And so, yeah, that's not a surprise. I mean, it's a complicated thing, isn't it? Because there's Adrian, who's actually the most important person in the world, really, in the life of any racing driver. Everybody wants to drive an Adrian Newey car, and yet he doesn't own the team, and he's the technical guy, whatever he is these days. I don't know what the title is. Something quite odd, isn't it? He's technical managing director or something.
Technical director, I thought.
Yeah, he's not a designer, and they used to be the old days like Derek Gardner with the six-wheel Tyrrell or Colin Chapman. So yeah, I think it's Fernando's done a very good job. There's no other way of phrasing it. I'm not saying it was work for him. He and Adrian have naturally become friends. And so that, yeah, it's not a surprise to me that. I suppose the real surprise then in that case is why Adrian didn't push Christian into signing Fernando when Fernando was walked away from Ferrari. Because they didn't even pick up the phone to Fernando. Thinking as I speak, maybe that's where the whole Adrian Newey, Christian Horner relationship broke down. Maybe it was that moment. Maybe Adrian thought, yeah, we got to get Fernando. And maybe Christian said, no way I want Fernando. It's too destructive, or whatever he might have said. And maybe then that's when it fell down, because they never ranked. Fernando never got a phone call from Red Bull.
I think that they wanted to sign Fernando. If rumour is to be believed, I think they wanted to sign Fernando in 2010, maybe. But then Seb got the jump, and I think maybe again in 2014. I'm not sure whether too many conversations were had around the time when they were, I don't know, getting rid of Checo. Not necessarily, because Alonso's. How do you think Max would react to have it? I know they're mates, but how do you think Max would react to that?
Well, they were early days for Max, and bottom line is, a guy like Fernando isn't that available that often. Well, I suppose he is actually in his career, but he was available.
Yeah.
And Red Bull basically had a free seat, and they didn't ring him. Regardless of the other driver, regardless of Checo, regardless of anything else, they didn't ring him. And I imagine, given the way things are now, Adrian probably was annoyed by that.
I suspect it probably had something to do with it, Peter. But I suspect the overall the biggest contributant as a percentage of the whole is the PA, right? That they shared the coercive behaviour that was alleged that Christian Horner was made by a PA that Christian that person was PA to Christian and Adrian Newey, and I don't think Adrian Newey liked that, apparently, allegedly.
Maybe. I don't know anything about that. What I do know is that from what I've read of that situation, which isn't very much, it seems to be about the same as every other Formula One team I've ever known over the years. Won't go into any more detail than that, but Adrian's been around the block a few times in terms of knowing how Formula One works, and nothing unusual at all in any of that. But anyway, I think I'm right. I think that's where it started.
Wow.
Even, you got to look at the history of it. Adrian really likes Fernando, loves working with him. Fernando was available, and Red Bull didn't even pick up the phone to him. Just look at those two facts, and that probably tells us a lot.
Yeah.
And even if he didn't know Fernando that well at that point, his brain would have said, I'm going to design the best car in Formula One for them. I want the best two drivers I can have.